Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You're back again with me, Daniel.
And Aaron.
Aaron, you're back this time since?
I am. Needs must. I missed yous.
Yeah, it's a shame you had a good game week as well, so it would have been nice for you to talk about it. But c'est la vie. You're here now. I've missed your voice. I'm sure everyone else has as well.
Too kind.
We've got a lovely little preview show for the games that are coming up this week. Thick and fast this year. It seems a bit like Project Restart. Usually we'd have a couple of weeks to do all this and compile a bit of information, but it just seems to be hell for leather at the moment. So we've both tried to look at as much as we can, given we've had a couple of days since the last podcast has been recorded twice, as some of you may have seen on our Twitter. But we'll dive right into it so that we aren't wasting any time. And that is Group A first and foremost. So first game, Atletico Madrid are playing Salzburg. What do you think of this one, Aaron?
And I think Atletico Madrid will be wanting to quickly put that upset defeat behind them. It's nice to know that my prediction last year would have went way wrong if Atletico Madrid made it to the final. And I think Atletico Madrid have to respond really, because if they don't, 2 defeats in a group stage, that kind of is Europa League territory. So you need to respond quickly. They're at home. So I'm expecting a response. Salzburg don't really have anything to lose. So should be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think a lot's going to come down to whether Diego Costa's back or not. I've got nothing to suggest that he will be back. Both teams had a good weekend. Both teams winning 2-0, I believe. So at least they've got a little bit of form there. I think Salzburg are probably a little disappointed with their result against Lokomotiv Moscow. I think they would have targeted that game as one to win from this group. But I also think they're not going to go there and fear Atletico just with their attacking potential, really, for Atleti. They weren't convincing at the weekend. They did win 2-0. Marcus Llorente and Luis Suarez with a goal, but the second goal came once Betis were down to 10 men. Betis had some good chances as well. Doesn't really matter how strong Atleti's defence is. They seem to easily get through the midfield and chances are being created, especially from wide areas. I thought with how tall some of the Madrid defenders are, that teams might struggle, but Betis found a way at times. I don't think there's many surprises really with who we should be targeting here. Carrasco looks lively down that left-hand side, but he doesn't always deliver. Llorente with another goal at the weekend suggests that he might be a good, more budget option in there. I wouldn't really be looking too heavily at either team, though. I do think this is going to be another 1-1, 2-2 sort of situation, to be honest. I don't think Salzburg really have the quality throughout their entire team, but they do have individual players that can pull off the sublime. Daka's in good form. He scored again in the 91st minute, which, any time counts. But again, it's not exactly... He wasn't exactly prolific in the first game against Lokomotiv Moscow. He missed some good chances. He got his assist, but I didn't see enough for him that suggests if I don't already have him, that I would go to him.
I think something that was quite interesting is that Carrasco was brought on, but then brought off later.
Yeah.
Not sure if that is injury or I haven't really heard anything, whether it was just to give him a little bit of a run out. But he was brought in at half time and then subbed off 40 minutes later. So not sure if an injury or anything happened there. It would be worth waiting. I mean, you can kind of get a heads up for the early kickoffs.
Yeah.
But it would be worth watching if you are going to bring him in because of his performance against Bayern Munich. It's worth looking at the injury reports and if he's named in the squad.
Yeah, for me, with the abundance of midfielders in the game, I just think stay clear of Atletico Madrid anyway, and I would be more likely to go Llorente. Carrasco's one of those players that helps the team get from A to B. He obviously can pop up with a goal, but he's not exactly consistent at it, and I'd prefer the person that's going to be in the box after he's done all the hard work for them. That's me personally. Do you have a prediction for this game?
I think Atletico Madrid will win 1-0.
I'm going to go for 1-1. I think 1-1. I think those three teams outside of Bayern Munich are all going to be huffing and puffing against each other. And without Costa, I just think, again, not because he's the best of those front three. I don't think he is. I think he's the worst of the front three. But I think he works best in that team dynamic where he occupies other players and lets the mercurial talent of Felix and, that wise old head of Suarez pop in and do their thing in front of goal. Not that Costa's a bad finisher either. He's proved himself at his first stint at Atletico and at Chelsea as well. I just don't think he's aging very well. But that being said, he allows other players to come into the game and he fits Simeone's style really well of being really aggressive and putting yourself about a bit. So they're my thoughts. I don't think this is a game that people should be overly looking at. One other thing to mention is Szoboszlai, goal scorer in the first game of the Champions League, did get an assist at the weekend. So if you've got him, feel free to stick with them. If you're looking for a differential, feel free to go there. However, it's 7.5 million. I think there are other priorities to go for. So not much to say on that one. We'll move on to Lokomotiv Moscow versus Bayern Munich. Do you see just another route, however you want to pronounce it, for Bayern?
Pretty much. I think they're just going to continue the way that they always have. And I think they'll win by a good couple of goals. The only thing that I was quite worried about is Alfonzo Davies.
Yes.
Being brought off injured. He's owned by quite a lot of people. I think he's the most owned defender behind Kimmich. And yeah, so for them people, at least at his price point, he's going to be, actually, he is the most owned defender by 10%. 41% of teams own him. So the likelihood is that...
Sorry, yeah, I just don't get that. I don't understand why. I don't get it. Why? Like, he's a good player, but buying on like the most defensively reliable, and for 0.5 you can have Kimmich, who actually has attacking returns and plays in attacking midfield, and amongst other things. Davies, I don't even think his statistics in terms of, goals and assists are very good in general.
Yeah, I don't have them up in front of me, but thing is with Davies is that he wasn't originally brought in as a left back. He was brought in because there was too many injuries that they couldn't fill the position, and because he was so good and so quick, he worked in that team. And Hernandez was originally their left back, and he's played there the majority of the start of the season, and he's going to go back there. So I don't see Davies even getting back into the team. Hernandez, 5 million, owned by 1%. He's going to be the left back. So if Pavard and Hernandez seem to be the go-to 5 millions to get into that team. But like you said, for 1.5 more, you're getting a midfielder at a defensive position and in Kimmich. And if he was priced as a midfielder at 6.5, you would probably still go for him because of his ability. So because he's a defender, if there is a Bayern Munich defender that you are going to try and break your team up to get in, it would just make sense to go to Kimmich rather than having to use two transfers to get Hernandez or Pavard in. Although if you are looking for a straight swap and don't have the funds and you're getting rid of Davies, then Hernandez seems to be a solid option.
I think Hernandez is a great shout. The game at the weekend, so Bayern won 5-0. Hernandez was one of their most attacking players, but not in terms of how you'd expect a left back, by which I mean, break up into the opponent's final third, looking to get a ball into the likes of Lewandowski, etc., Muller. He was the one on the end of crosses. They had a counter-attack. Kingsley Coman played the ball in magnificently across the box, and it's Hernandez on the end of it as the only person in the box. He looks really, really attacking in that game. And I've seen him in the past whenever he plays. He usually gets one or two chances at goal. So I think that's a really, really good call. If you're looking for a differential, he'd be the one I'd go for if you can't afford Kimmich. Absolutely. Pavard's okay. Pavard will get maybe the odd assist. But he's not really too much of a goal threat unless he has a 35-yard screamer like he did at the World Cup, which I can't really see happening too often. I don't think he's been able to replicate that. And Hernandez isn't an assured finisher. I'm not saying he's going to get loads of goals, but he's putting himself in the positions to get goals. And he could quite easily just, shin one in just by being in the right position. So I think he'd be one to look out for. With regards to the other Bayern Munich players, I think we all know Lewandowski scored another hat-trick, and it was a great hat-trick. Absolutely fantastic hat-trick. And Leroy Sané came off the bench to score an absolute wonder goal. Looking at players that played well against Atletico, Kingsley Coman, again, was outstanding. He got 1 or 2 assists at the weekend. He could have had more if other people were able to finish the chances. Leon Goretzka missed one good chance from his pass and another great chance from Leroy Sané's pass, which ended up getting put in by another Bayern player. So if you are looking at Kingsley Coman to continue his run at 8 million, that's something that I'm really looking into. He is not just on my radar, he is looking like a priority for me as one of my 2 transfers. I've got 4 in mind, I think, maybe certainly 3. And Coman is one of them.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, I like what Nathan said on the other episode, was he's going to be this year's Gnabry.
Yeah, he's cheeky for stealing that from the first recording of the podcast. But fair play to him. I like his style.
And I think he will, but with Coman, you obviously run the risk of when Gnabry is back, and also Sane and all the other attacking players that Bayern Munich have. But if Coman keeps performing the way that he is, I think he's a must-have for his price point in the game.
Yeah, I think he's looked better than Gnabry from the start of the season. Just in terms of if you're someone that looks at form, that's important. Fantastic news is that it is one of the early games on the Tuesday. So we will be able to see the Bayern Munich starting 11 before we have to lock in our transfers, final teams, etc. So please don't make your transfers yet. Have a look at it. See if one of these players is playing. Goretzka, again, this weekend, getting in some unbelievable positions. And it just wasn't his day in front of goal. They were going through his legs and he was scuffing them, and it was just one of them. But he was still putting himself in amazing positions. Bayern Munich look like they've got back into the swing of things. They did have a bit of a shaky start. Well, they didn't. They won 8-0 and then had a shaky little bit afterwards. But everyone's playing so many games so quickly. And these people are human beings. The level of performance that we expect, from teams, because of teams like Manchester City getting 100 points in the league, and then, that Manchester City versus Liverpool end of season, and what Bayern Munich have been able to achieve, and how Liverpool won the league last year, and then individual performances, mainly thanks to Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Our expectations, I think, have risen, and they're perhaps a little unrealistic for what we expect of a team to do. But I think Bayern Munich have sort of shaken off a week or two's worth of jitters and are now back in full flow. And now that but arguably the best defense in this group have gone, I can see them doing well against these 2 teams, especially Salzburg, who are more of an open team. Perhaps wouldn't bank on a Bayern clean sheet for it, but they'll be the most open team. So if you want to go Bayern, now's the time to do it.
I think as well, like looking at Locomotive, that their result was quite interesting, because although they lost, it was a dominant performance by them. They had 76% possession, 20 shots, and compared to the other team that only had 5. And I think what I wanted to highlight was just to kind of throw a little spanner compared to what you just said, is that Locomotive had 20 shots but 3 on target, showing that they're quite wasteful. You won't have that much possession against Bayern Munich, and when you have the opportunity, you need to take it. And I think what this result on the weekend, or at least this performance, shows is that the team can be quite wasteful. And so I actually think Bayern Munich will keep a clean sheet this week. And I think it'll be 3-0 to Bayern Munich. They'll get the job done and then shut up shop.
When I said the clean sheet thing, it was about Salzburg. But yeah, against Lokomotiv Moscow, I can definitely see a clean sheet. They lost at the weekend 2-1 against Rotor. Rybczynski scored. Rybczynski scored. They were had a man sent off, so down to 10 men at around 95 minutes, which means absolutely nothing, really. Final whistle would have went afterwards. I don't know what it was for. Not all of these games have highlights. Some of them do. So trying to watch games and watch highlights has been a little tricky for some of them. But also it was a case of, I felt it would be quite wasteful and wasting everyone's time to really talk too much about Lokomotiv Moscow. We discussed who we think you should go for in the group previews. My mind won't change just because these types of teams are set and forget. Go with it. If you've already got them, you can keep them. I wouldn't expect anything in this game. Look forward to the Atletico Madrid game. So with Group B, we'll move on to the early kickoff. So we'll not go alphabetically for this one, Aaron. We'll go on to Shakhtar versus Inter. Just that is another game where we do get to see the team sheet before it comes out. So another reason to hold fire on your transfers, because I think Shakhtar are going to be looking quite tasty after their result against Madrid. And quite a few people have got Inter players anyway, especially Hakimi and Lukaku. We'll talk about Shakhtar first, being the home team. These really, really interest me now. I don't think a 3-2 victory over Real Madrid is anything to be sniffed at. I'm obviously not overly keen on anything defensively. But if we look at Tete in midfield, who was obviously the man of the hour, he also got an assist this weekend and a win for Shakhtar. He's 5.5 million, I believe. I'm just going to double check the price on it.
Yeah, I'm quite interested with Shakhtar because I didn't see that result coming. I think Real Madrid, I think they weren't expecting the type of performance that Shakhtar put together. And I don't think Shakhtar really expected Real Madrid to be that bad either. They were expecting more of a game. But being professional, they took it to Real Madrid and I think it was the right result in the end. And so they're more than capable of also beating Inter Milan. Like I think I've said it many times that Conte is not good in Europe. And I think Shakhtar are a good team. Tete is 5 million. So he's definitely a budget option if you need to make 2 midfield changes and maybe upgrade up to like a Forsberg, up to a Koeman if you are able to go down to Tete on one of your other midfielders. Like very, very capable of being a good enabler, where when he's playing, he has the potential to create something. And that's what you want. You want your team to be in and around the box. And if your team is going to create something, you want the players that are going to be involved. Tete has proven over these last few weeks that he is going to be that player for 5 million. Great enabler, great player. And he's a good differential, 2% owned. So, and I think that's maybe as well just because if people are looking around the 5 million bracket, I think they're looking for players that they know rather than teams that they don't know as much. So I think people shopping around there are looking for like N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, players like that who they know play in their teams rather than taking a risk. And I think that's maybe a reason why Tete wasn't picked in more teams, but he's more than capable of creating something against Inter Milan, who are still trying to gel together in a new defensive unit.
I think as well with Tete, he's going to look to exploit the space left behind by Kimi. He seems to, he likes to like operate like wide. and then come in and cause absolute mayhem by the looks of it. So yeah, you're right, 5 million. Solomon is 5.5 if you want to double up. I can think of worse double ups. I mean, I went for a Bruges double up and that worked perfectly in the last game. I don't think it'll work as well this week. I've got very realistic expectations of what will happen there. But I think if you're going to look at Shakhtar, they're the two players to go for. And as I mentioned earlier, Coleman being one of those players that are a priority for me. Tete is a priority for me at 5 million, especially when I've got the budget, because I've got 4.5 million midfielders, and I know that I'd rather have Tete 100% more than Barrios. So I think that one's pretty obvious. With regards to Inter, some controversy with Hakimi. It turns out that he had a negative COVID result, and he since got some minutes at the weekend. So that's promising. He didn't play the full game or anything. So I think that is really promising for us Hakimi owners that we don't need to sell. What was your impression of the Inter game?
It was what you expected. Lukaku is in unbelievable form right now. I think he's the player that looks like he would probably do something against Shakhtar. Well, he was last year. I think he scored a hat-trick against them in the knockout rounds of the Europa League. And yeah, it's expected. Inter Milan, like what you were saying before, have not been solid defensively. This is their first clean sheet of the season, I believe. And I mean, Bonavento scored 2 against them, and that's not a good thing. They are a very bad team. And yeah, so it is their first clean sheet of the season. And I think it's going to be one of them games where they're going to try and make Shakhtar, like just typical Conte tactics, going to go to the wing backs quickly into the front two, and then the front two play with each other and connect, and one of them will score. Lukaku seems to be the one on form right now. So if you were looking to bring one of them in at their price point, Lukaku is the better option. Although I prefer Latio as a player, and I think he is going to be playing to try and get noticed, to be fair. So it's a good opportunity for him. But Lukaku proved in the fixture last year that he knows how to play against Shakhtar, and this season he's being really, really good as well. So I wouldn't bet against Lukaku, to be fair.
I think it'd be foolish to ignore Lukaku's form. He's just so bang hot on it right now. And he's the penalty taker as well, which, as we've seen this season, is a real positive. I think he's worth the extra money. Just so bang hot on it right now. And he's the penalty taker as well, which, as we've seen this season, is a real positive. I think he's worth the extra money. And if you were looking at one of the two, it is a no-brainer. I agree with you. I like Martinez as a player. But I think maybe the whole world's giving a little bit of disrespect to Lukaku at the minute, because if this was Haaland or anyone else, then I think a lot more be made about his current form. I mean, Haaland's in great form anyway. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Lukaku's been starting to become more vocal about the disrespect he's getting, which is quite nice to see that he's starting to stick up for himself as a player. It just shows that his confidence was completely just destroyed at Manchester United, because this is the type of player he was at Everton, and he's developed as a player, but Man United didn't give him that platform because they had tactically inept coaches.
I wouldn't say tactically inept coaches. Jose Mourinho and who else did he have? Was it just Mourinho?
Did he come in at the end of Van Gaal?
I'm sure it was. I cannot remember, but I wouldn't say either those are tactically inept. I think it's just a case of.
I think it was no, because Lukaku actually did okay with Mourinho. I was on about more about Oli.
Yeah.
Because because Lukaku actually did okay. If you looked at his stats under Mourinho, it was a good season. It just wasn't an 80 million, whatever they spent for him season. I think it was 75. It wasn't that 75 million pound season, but his goals for Mourinho were actually good. It was just Ollie trying to play him out on the wing, making way for Rashford up front and stuff like that. That kind of just, you were kind of like, what are you doing?
Martinez, when Martinez was Everton manager, played Lukaku out in the wing one time, beat Everton 3-1 or something, and it was hailed as a tactical masterclass. So he's probably trying to do something like that again. And obviously, Lukaku, I think, that sort of claimed he'd put on a bit too much weight. He was a bit slow. And with the way that Man United want to play, I kind of agree, because they should be playing, through quick transitions from defense to attack, because they've got pace, they've got explosiveness, they've got some really good finishers, but they're not quite fox in the box kind of players. Or they're not Teddy Sheringham clever. They're more technically gifted, better dribblers, that sort of thing. So it seems to suit their style more. And I don't think Lukaku fits into that style, really. That being said, Inter didn't play great in this game. And then as soon as they scored the first goal, which was a really good goal by Lukaku, fantastically taken, from then they seemed to be in complete control after that.
Yeah, like Inter Milan just played perfectly. And I don't know whether it's because with Manchester United, I think Lukaku said it in an interview. He said, I'm quite vocal about where I want the ball. And if people understand that, then I'm able to score, which is, like you can, then that opens up the debate going, well, he's a really good striker. He should be able to adapt. But if he knows the way that he can be productive, and then it's on the people with the ball, they then don't deliver it to him in that way. It is a debate worth having one time to see, because Lukaku will always be one of them debated strikers. Was he good in the Premier League? And in my opinion, he was.
His goal scoring record in the Premier League was brilliant, particularly for his age. I think people forget how young he was when he came through. He's not exactly old now. I think he is a little disrespected. I don't think he's, one of the world's greatest strikers or anything, but I think he gets a lot of negative press when it's really, really unfair. We'll move on to Mönchengladbach versus Real Madrid. Real Madrid coming off a fantastic El Clasico win, 3-1. Bit of an up and down game that. And Ansu Fati becoming the youngest ever El Clasico scorer. Congratulations to him. 17. Continues to blow our minds. 8 million in the game. I've already got him. Do I take him out? Who knows? And then, this game was just so typically Sergio Ramos, though. So he converts the penalty really well. He's then in the box from open play for some bizarre reason, getting on the end of crosses. I think Neto's made a really good save from a chance that he's had in the box. I've got no idea what he's doing or why he's doing it, but it's unbelievable to watch. And then at the death, he makes a great challenge on Lionel Messi to stop him going through and maybe make it a bit of squeaky bum time at the end for Madrid. Luka Modric with a really cool goal. Doesn't panic at all. Valverde with the other goal, got the first goal. Again, found himself in a really good pocket of space. Intelligent run. Breaks through. Barcelona's defence absolutely nowhere to be seen whatsoever. And you just kind of complain with the composure and the finish. So it was a really good day for Madrid. Messi was in and out. Courtois made an absolutely fantastic save from at the near post, which we've seen Messi completely mug goalkeepers off in the past, but it was a great goal. It looked a bit like a FIFA save, where you throw your controller down, your mouth's open, and it's just a bit, how unrealistic is this game? The keeper would never save that. It was one of those kind of saves where Messi's got the entire net aim for and he hits it quite well. And Courtois comes from absolutely nowhere. And I think that's the result that they needed going into this next game. And I think obviously Zidane might feel a little vindicated by playing a weaker team against Shakhtar, because he'll see this now as, well, I've got 5 more games in this group where I can play a stronger team, and we've just won the El Clasico, which realistically, when it comes down to a 3-horse race in La Liga, I think he'll take that. I don't think he'll be bothered by that at all.
Especially when La Liga they don't do goal difference, they do head-to-head. And so that is huge. If Real Madrid and Barcelona finish level on points, then Real Madrid have already beaten Barcelona 3-1. So that is huge in the league.
I think with I've had a few questions on Twitter, and I think the main question is, Ramos, is he worth it? Yes, in my opinion, he is. If you've got him and you didn't want to go without him, keep him. If you don't have him and you've got a gut instinct to go there, feel free to. He is the penalty taker, and judging by his performance against Barcelona, you'll get goals. And there will be more clean sheet potential, in my opinion, against Mönchengladbach. But the main question was, which of the midfielders from Real Madrid do you go for? And it's a sort of a debate between Vinicius Jr., because he's the most explosive, Casemiro, because he gets ball recovery points. I believe he got 5 ball recovery points against Shakhtar, or Valverde, or Luka Modric. They were the main ones. I think Modric's form looks really good, 2-2, but we mentioned in the preview show that we think that midfield trio, I appreciate there's 4 of them, but only 3 of them will play, between the 3 players I mentioned and Toni Kroos, they'll probably get 1 goal each in the group stages. Modric has got his. I don't think Casemiro is likely to get as many ball recoveries against Mönchengladbach, because they aren't as an explosive team as Shakhtar. They'll be more patient, look to get the ball out wide, and then they'll look to threaten from like more aerial positions as well. I don't think they'll go through the middle as much, or even with Shakhtar when they started out, stretched the game and then brought the players inside, which was, Casemiro territory. I just can't see Mönchengladbach really doing that as much. So Vinicius Jr., he's 8 million. He's most expensive. Shame that we didn't get to see more of him, but obviously we saw the impact that he made there. My honest advice would be to go with none of them. You've got 5 midfield spots, and there's some banging 4 midfielders. Would you rather have Kingsley Coman for 8 million or Vinicius Jr. for 8 million? It's a no-brainer for me personally. If you support Real Madrid, then obviously you should watch the games and really know which one to go for. I think Casemiro's price is too much just to be looking at ball recovery points. I want more. And you just never quite know which one of them will hit. One of them will. I do think that one of those midfielders will get a goal, but trying to predict which one it's just a pure guess. They take turns. Valverde could have a goal against Shakhtar as well, obviously disallowed. So, do you want to take that as form? Maybe. I want to see more from them, and I don't think they've got a group that really promotes a lot of goals. So I think I'd rather go with other options.
Yeah, if you had to go for any of them, like had to, I feel sorry for you, first of all. But then second, I would honestly go for Valverde, 6 million, so that if he doesn't perform, it's not that big of a hit on your team. Because you've saved 2 million that you would have spent on Vinicius Jr., and that could be spent elsewhere. But then again, if you have to go for a Real Madrid player and you've chose Valverde, why don't you find 0.5 out of somewhere and get Ramos, who's a penalty taker? So that's, if you had to go for any Real Madrid player, I don't understand why you wouldn't go for Ramos.
I agree.
In my opinion.
Mönchengladbach, Hoffman seems to be the man of the hour for them. How did you take their performance against Inter?
I thought it was quite interesting because Inter Milan, well, they drew the last year's first home game as well, and against a team that they were expected to win. Much in Gladbach are one of them teams where if you do take them lightly, they will beat you, because that's why they're just so organized. They're so drilled. They get the basics right. I like Mbolo as a player. He was always one of my go-to career
players,
mode
yeah,
buys.
from
Yeah,
FC Bar when he
but
played for them.
not but they've got quite a good team. And when you look at it, there's a lot of players that you don't realize that have played for them. Hoffman, though, right winger, seems to be a great player. And then the left back scoring the penalty. I know what Nathan, I think, said was that he's not the normal
Hoffman
penalty
took the
kick
penalty
taker.
this weekend.
Yeah, so either way, I'd probably not go for the defenders for this team, knowing that they have to face Real Madrid that have to win, and Shakhtar that have looked really, really good as well. Yeah, Hoffman seems like a really, really good
He only
player,
played.
though. I'm not
He
sure how
only
much
played
he is.
30 minutes.
Sorry.
This week and got a golden assist from half an hour in a 3-2 win. He got a goal in the last game. If you're looking for a Mönchengladbach player, I think he's one to go for. Ginter got a goal. Obviously, a defender. I don't know. It's a crazy one, but if Benzema isn't on form, everything seems to go through Benzema, whether he scores or not. He occupies so much space. I think he's another disrespected footballer. I mean, don't get me wrong, he had a really bad patch for Real Madrid where he was missing open goals and he really couldn't hit a barn door. He wasn't playing well, but I think a lot of players go through that. He's been so important for them going forward that if he has an off day, you could see Mönchengladbach potentially keeping a clean sheet. That being said, they conceded 2 goals at the weekend against Mainz. Is it a risk you want to take? Not for me personally.
Yeah, well, Hoffman, if you had Forsberg in your team and he didn't deliver against Istanbul and you're looking to get him out, Hoffman is a straight swap. But like we said, it's a harder group, but he is a midfielder in form rather than going and trying to wrap your head around Real Madrid midfielders. Hoffman is a player in form. So they're the type of people you want in Champions League football.
Yeah, totally agree. 7 million. So he's at one of those sorts of price points that are a bit awkward, really. I think he's probably been priced out. I think if he comes in at 6, he's really worth a look, because you wouldn't put I personally wouldn't put the Real Madrid midfielders ahead of him as in terms of a fantasy asset. Obviously, he's an actual player. That's different.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for this game?
I think Real Madrid will win 3-1.
I'm going to go with 2-0 Madrid.
Did we say a prediction?
I don't think
for the
we did.
Inter
What's your prediction for the Inter game? Inter versus Shakhtar.
I think Shakhtar will give it a better go than they did last year, but I think Inter Milan will win the game 3-1 instead of the 5-2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 3-2 Inter. So
I just think Lukaku's too strong.
He's fantastic, and I think I think with the way that Real Madrid started that game in terms of leaving big players out, forced to and chosen to, for depending on what way you want to look at each player, I don't think Inter will really be doing that. And if Hakimi's back on that right-hand side, whereas Real Madrid were playing with a left back at right back, I think he'll cause a lot more problems. So yeah, I'll go with 3-2 to Inter on that one. So Group C, I can't see us spending much time on this one, to be honest with you. None of these teams are in super form. Marseille won at the weekend 1-0 against Lorient. Porto have won 1-0. Olympiacos didn't play. And West Ham stunned Man City with a 1-1 draw. In particular, Michail Antonio stunned Man City with an overhead kick. So the wheels seem to be coming off a little bit for Man City. They're just not hitting the intensity or the style of play that we're used to seeing them. If anything, this just further reinforces me not wanting to go with any Man City players. And Aguero came off after 45 minutes with what looks like another injury. I don't think there's been an update on it at the time of this recording. So that's something for everyone to keep an eye out on. That will only serve to help the opposition. Let's be honest. Man City need a striker. And not that Aguero played fantastically in his 45 minutes against West Ham, but just that presence to occupy a defence. West Ham are in great form. They've been beating teams 4-0 this season. So I don't think it's right to just say, oh, well, they were only playing West Ham. It's a disaster. West Ham deserve a lot more respect than that for how they've been playing. That being said, Marseille showed me nothing against Olympiacos that suggests that they have what it takes to beat Man City. My opinion hasn't really changed. If you've got Gundogan, keep him. I wouldn't be interested in any of the other players. Sterling doesn't look like he's in great form. He's been getting a lot of stick on Twitter. Can people remember that he is a person? I'm sure he didn't want to miss those one-on-ones. I know it's frustrating. I had him as captain for FPL. So I'm doubly frustrated. But ultimately, it's a young lad trying to playing football. Just keep it calm, yeah? That being said, it doesn't give me hope to go in on Man City players in the near future. They're in complete disarray for their standards. So I don't feel comfortable. And Pep isn't inspiring me with confidence with sort of his demeanour at the minute, but also his team selection is all over the place. And it's not to say he's choosing the wrong team. It's not me sat here, armchair football fan trying to tell Pep Guardiola what team to play. But just in terms of trying to predict things, it's completely off the wall. I mean, Phil Foden came off the bench to score. Great decision, really good management from Pep Guardiola. But I think if a lot of us were to guess, we would have thought he would start because he didn't start against Porto. If you want to play Pep Roulette, just to be in with a chance of winning the same amount of points that you could get from other players, be my guest. I'm having no part of it.
It's just not worth the budget. Like, I had Sterling in last week because I had the budget and I had no one to spend it on, basically. So rather than saving the money, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try and chance it. I mean, it got me 5 points. So it was more than Forsberg, who only got 1. So it paid off, but I could have got 5 points from someone a lot cheaper. I mean, Casemiro got that by himself. Not saying get him over Sterling, but my point is that the budget and the amount of budget that the Man City players take up is not worth the risk. And Marseille are an organised team who can punish unorganised teams that Man City seem to be without Laporte.
Yeah, I think we should just jump straight into a prediction for this. I can't see anyone going, I'm on a wild card. Let's pick Marseille players after they've been beaten 1-0 to Olympiacos and we've got no idea who their talisman is because Payet and Tovan are inconsistent with returns. It's just a bit pointless, really. How do you think this game's going to go? What's your score?
De Bruyne's back, so I think that feels Man City. Well, they're always a bit more dangerous when De Bruyne's on, regardless of who's up front. But Sterling, because he's not an out-and-out striker, and he always seems to be played in that role, I think that it's going to be low scoring, and I think Man City will still win. I don't think Marseille are that good of a team to be able to turn over Man City, but then again, we've said that about other teams this season, and they've gotten results. but I'm not going to bet against De Bruyne, just solely De Bruyne.
Who would?
And I'm going to go, Man City 2-1.
I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I think Marseille have the potential to score from outside the box. We've talked about it before. It's no secret Man City are weak with shots from distance. They don't press the ball properly in there. They're being a bit better when Fernandinho comes back. He's out injured for a very long time. Well, 6 weeks. It's long enough. So they're immediately weaker in the centre of the pitch. We've seen that Rodri can't quite get out to the ball fast enough. And people like Dimitri Payet earn a living shooting from 25 yards out. So I can definitely see, I wouldn't be surprised if Marseille get a goal from distance. I'm going to go with 2-1 Man City as well. Yeah. The next game, Porto Olympiacos. Like I mentioned, Olympiacos haven't played this weekend, so we've got literally nothing to go off but the Marseille game. And I don't think they've got a game scheduled for this weekend either. As far as I can see, if I'm wrong, let us know on Twitter. But I couldn't find any games. I don't know if Google just doesn't like me. Porto.
Oh, they don't have a game.
Porto won 1-0 against. Again, I don't honestly. I'm fairly well versed in European football teams, and it was against a team I don't think I've ever heard of, or that I geographically know the position of. And I used to sell flights for a living, so I'm all right with geography, weirdly enough. Gil Vicente, don't know how to pronounce it between the Spanish and the Portuguese, because they say words differently. But looking at it, I don't think we're going to get much information from that game. I think we've got a much better idea of how they're going to play by looking at the Manchester City game. And for that, I'll say they were impressive. They played really well at the beginning. I think once the second goal went in, they sort of put their heads down. They played 3 at the back this weekend, maybe to try and save the energy of the fullbacks. Not entirely sure, but that's not a formation they tend to play, as far as I'm aware. Evan Nielsen got the goal, but it was just typical because of the fixture congestion that a lot of players were brought off at half time in around 50, 60 minutes and just trying to save their legs more than anything. I wouldn't go off this game. I'd just go off the Man City game. And because of that, I probably wouldn't recommend too many of their players. I thought Olympiacos did well. We talked about it. Mathieu Valbuena looked really dangerous against Marseille. I can't see a massively open, free-scoring game, though. I don't think Olympiacos would allow that to happen. I think they've got 2 or 3 dangerous players max that they'll look to utilize them in a very specific moments in the game. Maybe when Porto are off balance from an attack. But I do think Porto will probably win this one 1-0.
Yeah, I think it'll be like a 2-0, 2-1 type
You
game.
project what you're going to put? 2-1 Porto?
Mm-hmm. I don't know why I went really loud there. But yeah, cool. 2-1. Pause.
Now on to the party, boys. Group D. I mean, these teams are all over the place at the minute. We've got the first game, Atalanta versus Ajax. I don't know which one of these to tackle first. We'll go with Atalanta because of the home team. Save the best for second with Ajax. But Atalanta had a rough go of it this weekend. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, they lost to Sampdoria 3-1. And Sampdoria last year seem to have sorted themselves out. They were a relegation threatened team last year, but the year before that they were fighting for Europa League spot. So they seem to have sorted themselves out again. And it was actually close to an Atalanta comeback when Zapata scored his penalty it was only 2-1, and I think once Gasperini realized that the game was going away from them, he then started to take all of his players off in preparation for the Champions League, the same way that he did the week before in Serie A when he also lost. All he did was realize when the game is getting away from him that he takes everybody off so they don't get injured for the next game. So it's quite a weird thing, that because Atalanta are more than capable of scoring multiple goals in 10 minutes. It's just, I think, with some of their players being older, like Gomez and Ilicic, it's important that they get rest in between games. And as they're coming thick and fast, I think, especially with Ajax and Liverpool over the next few weeks, and then Inter Milan coming up in the league as well, they just needed to rest the players. So it's hard because he is such a tactical coach, but I think it shows that he's prioritizing Champions League, especially in such a hard group. I'm excited for this game.
I think it's an odd decision because I think they've got a much better chance at the league, personally.
Yeah, I would think that too. Which is, I mean, I'm not complaining because AC Milan are top with 100% record right now. And if they chose to prioritize Champions League, I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's better for us because we get to see the games on a Tuesday and Wednesday. So one thing I did notice is it even started with a weakened team to a degree. Neither of the wing backs played in Gosens or Hateboer, so they're probably good to go for the midweek game. He played Sam Lammers up top from the start and brought on Duvan Zapata later on, who got the penalty. And he does a lot. I mean, he's a bit like how I talked about Costa, except for in better form, where he occupies the defenders really well, which allows those creative players around him a lot more time and freedom. Gomez looked like he struggled in that first half with Ilicic and Lammers up front. I don't think he got quite as many chances as he would have liked. He nearly scored a really fluky goal, but who cares if they go in? Looking at their team, Sporty Elio, saved a penalty as well from Quagliarella. But Quagliarella's goal was absolutely incredible. He brings it inside on his weaker foot. The defender follows him, pushes it back out on his left, and he's got about an inch of the goal to hit near post, and he smashes it. So I don't think you can really blame the goalkeeper or anything for that. And then, like I say, he saves a penalty later on. So that could really give him some confidence after a defeat. But I think Zapata is really the one to go for. Looking at it now, wish I'd went Zapata at the start. So if you're looking to bring in an Atalanta forward, I would bring in Zapata over Gomez. I just think the form that he's in looks terrific. Pasalic played a full 90 minutes, so he's likely not to play midweek, just as a fair warning for everyone that's got him. I think there'll be another player in midfield there. Potentially even Moranchuk, just with how he got his goal against Micheland. But yeah, Atlanta's form's a bit distressing, I'll be honest. It's so up and down.
I think that with some of their players, they're going to end up, he'll play Zapata from the start, he'll play Muriel up front with him, Ilicic will be benched, Gomez will play but will be subbed off. That's from a pattern that I've recognised. Malinovsky will come on, or Pasalic in his place. The defenders, Palomino, he's kind of he's a must start for them in defense. He's the center of their three. Jim City, who we all love, he's probably going to be benched. Toloi will probably play instead. But these are all players that you're probably not interested in, to be fair. Hatterbauer and Gosens will start on midweek. And they'll try and do the same as what they did against
Ferencváros.
Is that who it
Micheland
is?
they played,
No,
yeah.
Micheland. Yeah, I get confused on which of the weak teams in which group. Yeah, so they did the same against Micheland, where they get a good lead and then just make sure that they don't do any silly mistakes. I mean, they scored 3 goals in the first half and then just kind of relaxed. And that's just part because Gasperini, he's that kind of coach where he's always thinking about the next step. So that's why he took everybody off during the week. I mean, Gomez played 90 minutes. So that's why he's probably a guaranteed sub in this, where he will be subbed off around the hour mark, especially if they're winning. And he, with Gasperini as well, he always runs the risk of subbing you off before the 60-minute mark. So if they're winning in the first half comfortably, which I'm not sure with how Ajax are playing, but if they are, you run the risk of a 1-pointer from Gomez if he hasn't played a role in any of the goals.
We'll move on to Ajax. For anyone that doesn't know, Ajax won at the weekend by a record 13-0 away from home. That being said, the opposition were down to 10 men from the 51st minute. Like, that mattered. I think they were already 5 or 6 up by that point anyway. Far too many goal scorers to talk about. The ones that I should probably mention: Daley Blind, Anthony, Tadic, and then the man of the hour, Traore, scored 5 goals, and I think he got 3 assists as well. That being said, I'm pretty confident he played a full 90 minutes, whereas the likes of Tadic played 45, I think, and got subbed up. I think some of these were brought on at half-time and brought off at half-time, really resting the legs. Traore, in my opinion, should be a starter, but hearing what the Ajax coach said, he likes starting Labyad against open teams, and he doesn't like playing him against low blocks because he's not quite creative enough or clever enough. He's young. He's not the right type of player, and we know that Atalanta will not play with a low block. So Labyad might be the one to come in there as a shock starter. I personally wouldn't go with either of them. I think if you wanted to go with anyone, Anthony will play and Tadic will play. I'd probably go with one of those. I think we do have to take in the quality of opposition here. The triple V. So, is Traore going to score loads of goals again? Against Atalanta, they're going to give you as many chances as anyone else. But I think we should probably be realistic. Playing 90 minutes and then going to play against a really high-tempo Atalanta might not be on the cards for him. It'd be a shame, because I think if you score 5 goals in a game, you deserve it.
I mean, it'd be unreal if he does that again.
Not when we've got Hatterbauer, Gosens in the team. Do you have both?
Yeah. No, I've only got Hatterbauer.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Ajax, I think this result, even though as amazing as it was, is one of them once a season anomalies where they're probably not going to do it again. I don't think you should take too much from it, other than the fact that they're relentless. So they're going to keep trying. They proved that against Liverpool as well, that they're just going to keep trying and trying and trying. I think that's part of the Ajax that we knew from a few seasons ago. They're just going to keep attacking and attacking. And this is going to be 2 attacking teams against each other, which I think Ajax are a better defensive team than Atalanta are. And I think they proved that against Liverpool as well. So I think that this game will be a 2-2 draw.
How dare you? I'm going to go with... My gut instinct was 4-3 Atalanta. That was my gut instinct. So I'll stick with it. I think if my brain was to kick in, I think you've got a far more reasonable and sensible scoreline. But just when I look at the 2 teams, I'm like, yeah, 4-3, why not? Isn't there some stupid stat where Atlanta under Gasperini have scored 4 goals on like 27 occasions or something daft?
Yeah, they've also still on track to score the most goals within a calendar year of any Italian team in history, I think I read. So that's
Yeah, I'm
insane.
going to go with, sod it, 4-3. I don't care. Atlanta at home, right? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
obviously, however they want to water that pitch will favour them. Obviously, Klopp had to go at the pitch for whatever reason. It didn't look bad, so it might just be if it wasn't watered correctly or if it was the grass was a bit long. We can't see those things.
What was that for
For the
Ajax?
Ajax game, yeah, he said the players were tired because of the pitch.
Yeah.
And usually that's to do with grass length off. If the pitch is dry, the ball doesn't skid and it's,
Well, I think Gasperini doesn't like to play like that. He wants to give his team the advantage because he knows that his team playing at their best will
yeah.
outscore
So
any
I just
team.
think Atlanta will have the pitch how they want it, and that might be to the detriment of Ajax. So yeah, 4-3. Why not? Hopefully my score's right and we'll have a great time watching it. Moving on to Liverpool versus Micheland. Micheland scraped a 3-2 win against Brøndby, but Brøndby historically have been a strong Danish Super Liga team, so fair enough. They were down to 10 men, Brøndby, when the final goal went in, and it was an own goal. So Micheland, even in their league, haven't been, absolutely fantastic or squeaky clean. Liverpool with a 2-1 win at Sheffield United. Lots of controversy in that game, as seen on Twitter. It's just one thing after another for Liverpool, I think. And I think they're in danger of alienating neutrals against them. Just with, this sort of appeal that Van Dijk's the only player that's ever been injured, so they should be allowed to do things that, like Man City weren't allowed to replace Laporte. Other teams aren't allowed. And everyone kicked off when Barcelona signed Martin Braithwaite. And it was like, why are you supporting the elite? I think with the Fabinho situation, whether you think it is a pen or isn't a pen, it got given. But then 5 or 10 minutes later, a stonewall penalty wasn't awarded against Jota when he tripped someone up in the box. So whether you like it or not, Sheffield have the game's either evened out, and that was before Liverpool equalised. So the game's either evened out or Sheffield have been done. So I don't know why there are any complaints. And I think the reason why VAR didn't overturn it is because it's not a clear and obvious error. It is in the box because his foot's on the line. I think it's maybe one of the softest penalties I've ever seen. And if I was to look at it, I'd hesitate to give a penalty personally. Like I would look at it and go, maybe not. But there are views where Fabinho gets the ball and there are views where he stands on the player's foot. Now, we can say whatever we like, but I think the VAR rules are if it's not a clear and obvious error, when there were definite clear and obvious errors in other games. I'm looking at you, Harry Maguire. This just wasn't one of them. So the referee's decision, whether that was right or wrong, they had to go with it. But either way, they got lucky because Jota should have conceded. So Liverpool off to another slow start, but eventually they showed their absolute class. It could have been 3. Salah, inches offside, was the correct decision, but Trent with a great ball, and what a finish. Absolutely fantastic from Salah, showing that he just doesn't need that many chances. I think he hit the bar later on as well. Firmino with the Poacher's goal. I think he needed one of them. You hear strikers say all the time, you just need one in off your arse or something like that. And he got one just from a rebound, and it didn't just fall to him. He had to work to get in the position. He had to follow it up. He had to have the confidence to get in there. So really happy for him because he does a lot of the other dirty work, and he's not been in great form this season. He's not been the Firmino that we know. I don't think he's been a particularly great glue, which is why the front three have, I don't want to say struggled because they've still got a fair amount of goals, but when you look at the goals,
they're a front 4
yeah.
now.
So I definitely think Jota's coming in and helped as well. And it's nice to see him get his first goal. I think overall, Liverpool maybe lucky not to go 2-0 down, but beyond that, I thought they probably deserved the win. And sign the champions, really, isn't it? When you win and you're not playing absolutely fantastically well. I think, obviously, if we're trying to relate to the Champions League, I'm really concerned. My plan was to go Fati to Mane. That was my locked-in transfer. I'm nervous because I don't even think Mane will get his second appearance point. And if they keep a clean sheet, his clean sheet point. So I'm paying 11 million, is he? 10, 11 million?
No,
10 and a
he's
half?
10.5.
10.5 million for a player that's going to play 50 odd minutes. And yes, he could get 1 or 2 in that time. And that is wonderful. That's 11 points overall. But that's a lot of money when I could go elsewhere. So I'm really having to think about that a lot. And that goes the same for any of that front three that you've got in your team currently, whether you've got Salah, Mane, Firmino, Jota, you don't know if he's going to start.
Sorry, he is 11. And then Salah is 11.
Which I think they're priced correctly and far more sensibly than FPL. It took transfers in FPL for them to get their split, which is now fine, but some people have benefited from that. Fair play if you have. I'm not confident going in on them, and it's not because I don't think they'll batter Micheland or anything like that. I can see 3 and 4. Probably 4, the same as Atalanta. But are they going to be on the pitch long enough to get mega returns when, like we saw, even Alejandro Gomez, 1 return, Zapata, goal and assist, but his assist was from a save that fell to Luis Muriel. Moranchuk with 1 goal. Like, it's just, in that game, there was no outstanding player that got everything. And I can't see the same happening in this game, really, when they're not going to play 90 minutes. If Salah or Mane had a full 90 minutes, then yeah, either of them are, well, Salah more likely to get a big haul, like a hat-trick. I don't think Mane has as many hat-tricks as Salah, although I'm sure he's got the fastest Premier League hat-trick, if I'm not wrong.
He does.
But was that for Southampton or was that for Liverpool? There you go. I don't even think he's got, I might be wrong, but I don't think he's got a hat-trick for Liverpool. This might be the week. But looking at Klopp bringing them all off after 59 minutes, when that was Ajax and there weren't even, that win wasn't on the cards. It was 1-0 thanks to an own goal, and it was a scrappy game that then could quite easily have lost in the end with the Fabinho clearance.
Yeah, I think there's a massive risk that because of where Liverpool are in the league, facing West Ham next week, and then Man City the week after, that they rest players in this game. I think Minamino has a good chance of starting. I think there's a big risk of rotation. So if I was you, I wouldn't go with Mane because you could get Mbappe for the same amount of money.
Obviously Mbappe is a forward, but I'm thinking I can get Coleman in for that. I've got 3 million in the bank to go from Fati to Mane. I'd purposely done that. Or maybe 2.5, and I'm going to get 1 million when I transfer Messi to Mbappe. I'm going to have loads of money either way. So
I don't think he'll rest the full team. I think there's just the odd player, and then he'll just rotate the stars, I think, personally. Or he could do what you were saying, that he'll start his full team, but then rest people once he has the win.
Klopp is the type of manager that wants the result. One of those front 3 might get rotated. I don't think he'll drop 2 of them. And
no, Firmino will play.
And I think when you look at it, he's going to make sure the victory is in the bag, and he'll make his substitution, accordingly.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be really tough to predict that lot. And at their prices, this is the issue. If Salah played 80 minutes, if he played 60 minutes, you could see him getting a hat-trick. I'm not saying that he's not capable of it. It's just he might not start. And if he does, he might not even get 2 guaranteed points, or at least 1 guaranteed point just from playing 63 minutes, I think it is, on this game. So
yeah, that's the thing about them in this match, is that their floor is so low Like they run the risk of 0-1 points, but their ceiling is incredibly high in this game. And it's just whether you are willing
It's
to
for
take
people
that
with
risk.
cojones.
Yeah. To be fair, it's on a Tuesday, so it's captainable as well, and then you could switch captain if it doesn't work out for you.
If you're going to go with a risk, if you've got one of them in anyway, really think hard about who you're going to get in if you do want to transfer them out. But if you're confident that they can hit for you in the time that they may or may not play, at least if the risk doesn't pay off, you can get them out your team. You're just going to have to appreciate the likelihood is you're not going to be bringing in a premium option for them. I think my decision's probably going to be made anyway when I see the Bayern Munich lineup, because I think I prefer one of those players, personally. They seem to get more time on the field because they've got so many options when they go to the next game on a Saturday. They can go, right, you played this game, so you're now going to play this game. Liverpool really like sticking to that front three. What's your scoreline for it?
I think Liverpool will still win the game because even their second string team, I think, are good enough to beat Micheland. I think they'll win 4 or 5-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4-0. I think they'll match Atalanta's score 4-0.
Because they need to for the goal difference in the group. Because I think this group will come down to goal difference. Whether that's between first and second or between second and third, goal difference, I think, will play a role. And it's whoever can beat Micheland by the most, unfortunately for Micheland.
Yeah, for them. And I'm guessing we're not recommending anyone from Micheland.
No, I wouldn't. Not against Liverpool.
Heard it here first, guys. No, I don't think that was any surprise, really. So Group E, the boring group, should be called a Group Triple Z. We've got first up Krasnodar versus Chelsea. Krasnodar beaten this weekend 3-1 off Spartak Moscow. So they're continuing their bad run of form, I guess. Chelsea with the 0-0 draw to Man United. I think this one's really simple. Don't be desperate to get players from either team. If anything, if you've got Krasnodar players, probably get rid of them. I think Chelsea are looking a lot more secure with their new goalkeeper Mendy, although he nearly had a bit of a howler against Man United and was saved. I think in the end, the draw that Chelsea got with Man United was probably the right result, because I think Man United overall were the better team, but let's be honest, Chelsea were robbed of a penalty. Azpilicueta getting brought down. I wouldn't be in a rush to get anyone. I suppose if there was a time to get Chelsea players, this is the time. Just with how poor Krasnodar are on, they've got Rennes in the next game, so I wouldn't be averse to it. It's just, who do you get? Reece James and Azpilicueta rotate a lot. I wouldn't be fancying that. I'm still not too sure on Chelsea defenders, unless it's, I don't know, maybe Ben Chilwell. Is he a rotation risk? I think they're going to need him for the Premier League. The forwards aren't exactly hitting, every time they play. It's a case of, I think if you go for the right one, you'll do really well. But who is the right one? I don't know. Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Christian Pulisic, Timo Werner, maybe even Hakim Ziyech. I wouldn't have a clue which one to go for, because neither of them have staked their claim to say, yes, please pick me and put me in your fantasy team. What do you think?
I think it's similar to what we had with Man City, where, and even Liverpool to a degree, what we were discussing before, where the Premier League, it's so competitive in terms of, if you're not battling for the title, you're in that kind of mush where they're trying to qualify for the Champions League, and you can't afford to completely write off that to focus on the cup competition. You've got to kind of challenge on both fronts. So as a result, there's going to be rotation risk. And like with other teams that can kind of afford to, like Real Madrid, they very rarely, even on bad years, have to fight for top four. But if Chelsea started to put their strongest 11 out in the Champions League, they could very quickly end up finishing 10th, 8th, and stuff like that, and miss out completely because there's that many teams in the Premier League looking to get into the top 4. And as a result of that, I think the game is also priced them in that, with that in mind, being like, yeah, we have no clue who they're going to play either, so we're just going to price everybody at the same price, like 3.9 million midfielders, all in the same position. That just says, yeah, we don't know who's going to play.
Yeah.
All of their defensive midfielders are all 5.5 or 6, exactly the same. All the defenders are 5 million except Chilwell. It's just the same thing. So especially with the 9 million midfielders, you can't really, it's hard to do it without the risk, because similar to what we were saying with Man City, it's so much budget for someone who potentially might not play. And if they do play, you'll win big. Like, their ceiling is really big, especially in this game, but their floor is really, really like small, and the risk getting 1, maybe even 0 points. And because they play on the Wednesday, if they don't play and you haven't waited until the lineups have been announced, that's 9 million sitting on your bench, which is a lot of budget. So
Yeah.
it's up to the, I guess, the individual. If I was to pick anybody, Havertz seems to be the most in form. He's got a few assists now, 1 goal and a few ball recoveries, but it's not, I don't think it's enough to warrant 9 million price tag. So yeah, act on that as you will.
Yeah, I think he could be a shout. He was subbed off after 72 minutes for Mason Mount. But then I also think Mason Mount could be really good for this because he had less game time against Manchester United. But we know how much Frank trusts him.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Mason Mount gets so much stick, and I never understand why. Like, obviously, I appreciate there's that sort of fictional war for Southgate's love between him and Jack Grealish, which is neither Grealish nor Mount's fault. And I don't see why we should discredit Mount as a player just because English people want Jack Grealish to play for England. And I am in the camp where I want to see Jack Grealish play for England. But it's not Mason Mount's fault. And Mason Mount's a really good player. He's a young player. And if you look at like returns fantasy-wise, he does all right. He hits patches. He usually has purple patches and then he sort of disappears. But at the start of the season, when Werner's been trying to bed in, Havertz looked shocking for the first few games. I thought Mason Mount's actually carried them. Pulisic's been injured. Ziyech's been injured. I just think some of the stick he gets is a bit unwarranted, and I would never back against him to pop up with a goal or an assist, particularly a goal. He seems to be more of a goal getter than anything else, and he can get goals from outside the box, which are rewarded in this game. That being said, it's each player's individual decision which one of this lot they want to go for, because you're the one that's got to sleep easy on Tuesday night knowing that they might not get a game.
I was really impressed with Thiago Silva, to be fair, against Manchester United.
Yeah.
I think because not that I don't rate him as a player. He's one of the best players that I've seen live, and he's one of the best players just in general in defenders, like throughout his career. And I was thinking, oh, he might be too old, but it just showed that his intelligence is far beyond the average defender. The way that he was able to stop Manchester United building around the box. And
yeah,
I thought it was amazing. But at his age, I don't think he's able to play 2 games a week. So,
yeah.
and I think he's going to be a Premier League player, because most weeks that's where he's needed. And I don't think he'll be a Champions League player until the knockouts. But to be fair, he has played 2 games this week, and he got 8 points last game against Sevilla. But if that's 2 clean sheets against teams that are pretty attacking. So
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed with Chelsea defensively, which I never thought I would ever say. Unless I was talking about the Terry era. But
Yeah, it's been a while.
yeah, like they've
Well,
looked solid.
I think it's the first time a Chelsea goalkeeper has kept 2 clean sheets in his first games, Premier League games at least, since Petr Cech played for Chelsea. I think it might even have been like 2004 or 2005. It's been a long
Madness.
time since a debutant Chelsea goalkeeper came in and even kept 2 clean sheets in a row in the first 2 games. So,
And to
it's
be
nothing
fair,
against-
I could see them keeping one here, but
yeah, for sure.
for those who are like, all right, let's do it. Like that's the thing I needed. I don't. I think like it's very short sighted to bring in a Chelsea defender, knowing that they've got Ren and then Sevilla again. So, I feel like you just have to bring them in for this week to then, transfer them out.
Yeah, I disagree with the Ren thing. I can't see Ren causing them too many issues. Since Rafinha's left, their attacking output has stuttered. So I wouldn't be too worried. I think if you're going to go Chelsea defence, now is the time. If you think Chilwell can manage 2 games a week, go for him. I'd probably go for him over one of the attacking players, to be honest. That would be my Chelsea player.
Mm-hmm.
Likelihood of clean sheets and likelihood of attacking returns. He just needs to watch his yellow cards, and he needs to be playing. That's the only other concern, because he has had his injury problems. What do you think the score is going to be for this one?
I think Chelsea will win 3-0.
I'll go Chelsea 2-0.
I wonder if Giroud will play.
Well, that's the thing. But I think
Probably
Giroud might
Tammy.
be more of a Christmas striker. I think that's when Giroud might be coming into the fray. I think Tammy might play up front. Werner came off. It might be a case of Frank treats this, he plays a strong start in 11, see if he can get an early lead and then takes him off at half time.
Yeah.
But Chelsea have got a bad record of going ahead against teams and then blowing that lead. That it seems to be a pattern with Frank Lampard and his Chelsea team. So I don't know whether he's going to learn his lesson. But even then, it's not because he makes loads of substitutions. It's just, I think it's the team mentality, maybe. They are a young team without Thiago Silva and then N'Golo Kante.
Yeah, definitely. And for those who have Krasnodar players, I feel like that's too much of a punt. And I feel like you need to bring it back in a little. Come back to reality.
For sure.
So I don't think we even need to recommend any players for Krasnodar.
No, but speaking of Ren, we've got Ren versus Sevilla. Bad weekend for both teams. Ren were beat 2-1. They played a fairly full-strength team outside of maybe the centre forward, but he scored, Hunu. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's quite a bit of a rotation there. But they, like I've just said, struggle without Rafinha. They were beat by Angers. So it's not looking great for them. Again, I don't think they're a team that can, really take a good beating. But I'm a little bit worried about how they are going forward. They played a really strong back four. They still played Nzonzi Camavinga in midfield. It was a strong team for them. And yet they were still beaten 2-1. I didn't see enough against Krasnodar. We've seen how poor Krasnodar are. And for them only to get 1-1, I think they've already fluffed the lines with that one. And Sevilla, look, despite Sevilla also getting beat this weekend, I think it was a little bit different. They weren't playing their starting goalkeeper. They weren't playing Koundé at the back. So it wasn't, full strength team. It was still pretty strong though. And they got beat 1-0 off Eibar. So concerning both teams' form, if you have any Sevilla defence, I'd just stick with them. I wouldn't be keen on going attack for Sevilla. I can't see them getting loads of goals, but I do think they're really strong when they play the best back four and the best goalkeeper. I think they proved that against Chelsea. and they're a team that like really defend from the midfield areas back. They're not last man hero challenges or anything like that. So that's just something to look out for. I personally am on a double Sevilla defense. I've got Bundu in goal, and I've got Koundé at centre back.
Yeah, I've got Koundé as well, and I think that Sevilla will win this 2-0.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had. 2-0 to Sevilla. I'm hoping it's 0 anyway. That's the
Let's hope so.
The main number that I'm concerned with, that 0. So flying on to Group F, some very mixed results for teams in this group. We'll start off with Club Bruges versus Latio. Obviously, we'll let you talk about Latio, Aaron. That's your forte. With Club Bruges, they were beaten 2-1 by Leuven at the weekend. Not a good result. However, they were not playing their full strength team by any stretch. They played 3 at the back, which isn't normal for them. Ritz and Vanaken played in centre midfield, so we know about those. Diatta played as a right wing back. So I think the last time they played this sort of formation was about 3 weeks ago, and I'm sure it didn't go well for them then either. But they didn't have any other of their starters playing. Bonaventure didn't play. The new hero, folklore legend, De Ketelaere wasn't playing. Vorma wasn't playing. So they weren't playing the strongest formation, and they weren't playing arguably their best players. Good news is I think De Ketelaere might start if he's not playing in this game. He was brought on as a substitute, as was Vorma. So I think their minutes were just being managed. Bonaventure didn't get on the pitch at all. It was Lang who ended up scoring the goal that had actually brought them level at one point. It was a penalty, but I don't think that's going to matter because I can't see him on the pitch anyway against Latio. Latio won, but how did they play?
Played really well. Like, obviously, well, the goal that they conceded was right at the end, 91st minute. So I think they knew that they had won the game. But that's always dangerous thinking. But it paid off for them. Luis Alberto, praised him massively in the preview. He scored. Immobile got the assist, and Immobile scored. Of course he did. And yeah, I guess for those who may have took my advice, Milinkovic-Savic is injured. So that's 8 million. So make sure you get him out of your team. He came off against Dortmund, and he wasn't in the squad this weekend for injury reasons. So no idea about how long of an injury it's for. I don't think it was too severe, but don't have him in your team. Again, I think it's just the same old people. Just stick with Immobile, Alberto, and then if you're Cameron, Correa, because he's playing up front now. So he's been moved from the wing to striker position. So
did he get the assist for Immobile's goal, did he?
Yeah, he did against Dortmund, yeah. Not during this game, but actually, no, he didn't against this game. Faris did.
Yeah. I caught a bit of the game, and he actually did look really good. Luis Alberto looked really, really good. He had a shot in the first half as well. I think that was he was unlucky with, and he just seemed so creative.
He's a really, really good player. I can see another team picking him up if he does well in this Champions League, because then that's the exposure. I'm sure teams are already aware of him, but this is him proving it on the big stage. Career up front means that he's now an out of position midfielder playing up front, and I don't think he's that expensive either. I think he's like 7 million. So, oh no, he's 8 million. So same price as Milinkovic-Savic. So that's a straight swap if you want, but he's a striker now. And yeah, their defensive midfielders are going to pick up a good few ball recovery points because it's kind of very heavy in the middle. So you've got Lucas Leiva, Parolo, players like that who kind of just flood the middle of the pitch. And yeah, some Akpro looks like a decent pick, but I don't know it. I don't think he'll stay in the team long enough. I think Milinkovic-Savic, when he comes back, will just go straight there. So I think he would be a short-term solution if you needed an enabler because he's 5.5.
Yeah, I still think Lazio are an enigma because they're really bad at Dortmund. But in this game, from what I saw, I thought Bologna were unlucky. They had a goal disallowed in the first half. It was a foul on Lieva, I think, in the middle. Nicked the ball away, and it could easily have. I mean, I think it was just about a foul. I think it was the correct decision. But on another day, the 1-0 down, and they had less shots on target. I think they are riding on the curtails of Immobile's form.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to struggle when that drops off. But as it stands, Immobile has got to be a striker that people should be looking at as an informed player. There's too many strikers, unfortunately, because we'll have another striker to talk about later on who has a quality fixture. But I think if you're looking for informed strikers, it's really hard to look past Immobile, Haaland, and then obviously
Lukaku.
I was just about to say Lukaku, Gomez. There's some really good informed strikers that you don't want to miss out on, but you can't have everyone.
It's just crazy. Like, if you you've got Lewandowski, obviously 12 million. He's the most expensive out-and-out striker.
Lewandowski was the one I was trying to get in. I was like, there is one more that I'm missing here. And yes, the best striker in the world, him.
And then you've got Ronaldo, who won't play this week, but we'll get on to that group. Messi, but he's not an out-and-out striker. Neymar, not an out-and-out striker. So out-and-out strikers, Lewandowski, Lukaku, Haaland, Immobile, and Mbappe, that you could... I don't think you can go wrong with any of them on their recent form. Obviously, like Lewandowski last week, attack and return isn't guaranteed, but they should never be in fantasy, otherwise it's too easy. But on their current form, I would not criticize anyone for that decision to have any of them strikers in.
Yeah. What's your score for this game?
I'm gonna go for Latio win, but I think Bruges will get a few goals. So I'm gonna go 3-2 Lazio.
Wow. I'm gonna go with 1-1.
Another solid choice.
1-1, yeah. But it's one of them. I think it's a bit like the Zenit Bruges game last week where I was like, it's just what version of these teams are turning up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bruges are a better team than Bologna. And I think Bologna give Lazio enough chances. Sorry, I think Bologna give Lazio a good enough game, and Latio give Bologna enough good chances. And Bruges can really, really have a go at that. But I think as well, Immobile is just so in form that you'd fancy him against these Bruges defenders.
I didn't catch much of the Bruges game, but did they play a high line?
No. In the first half, they were fairly deep. And then it was more about frustrating Zenit at home, making sure that they couldn't get high on the fact that they've got 20,000 people in the stadium, first Champions League game. They just really wanted to be party poopers in the first half. Towards the end, they grew into the game, got a couple of chances. And like I say, the ref stifled them a bit just by giving them needless yellow cards, really.
Right.
But then in the second half, the game got stretched and they played a bit higher, but it wasn't crazy high. It was
just because that's where Immobile, like, that's where he excels in kind of the low block, because he will just kind of linger around the centre backs, and then as soon as they try and play offside, that's where his goal against Dortmund came from, where he just times his run like amazingly. He's just really, really good at getting in behind. Obviously, he does better against high lines, but with Lazio being such an attacking team, all they do is kind of link it to Alberto, who then just finds that killer pass.
Yeah.
And that's where Immobile kind of thrives, is when teams are trying to focus on playing offside or kind of sitting in a straight line. But I wasn't sure about Bruges. I didn't see that game, honestly. So I wasn't sure if they did do that, which is why last week I said Immobile would score with confidence during the predictions.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bruges, if they don't play a high line, if they don't play low block or whatever it's called, the way that
a low block is where it's really compact. They sit deep. They've got
kind of cram the 6 yard, like 18 yard. Yeah.
It's Newcastle play a low block, in Liverpool play a high line.
Yeah, so Immobile will do well against the low block. In the high block, he doesn't have enough speed, is what I was trying to say. To do, like, he'll manage to get a few shots off because he's really good at timing his run, but in a low block, he does better because he doesn't have to run with the ball as much.
Okay, I'm going to extend my prediction. I'm going to say Latio will go 1-0 up Immobile in the first half, and then Bruges will have nothing to lose. They'll come out and nick one in the second. So that'll be how the 1-1 happens. Just I feel like one of those octopuses that select a World Cup winner. We've got the next game, Dortmund versus Zenit. So Dortmund had a really strong win this weekend against Schalke. It took them a little while to break them down. They were incredibly dominant. They had 75% possession, Dortmund. They had 6 times the amount of shots as Schalke. 7 of them were on target. So they dominated the game. But like I say, it took them a little while to break them down. Akanji scored the first. It was from a set piece, and he just sort of picks up the pieces. He acts like an instinctive striker when they're just half a yard ahead of the defenders. Knocks it in. Then it's no surprise Erling Braut Haaland got the second. He's just in absolutely outrageous form. His goal scoring numbers are starting to get to the point of silly for his age. Like, Messi and Ronaldo at this age weren't putting forward these kind of numbers. I appreciate Ronaldo's a right midfielder at this age, and Messi was a right winger, so maybe not overly fair, but still, he's putting up some numbers that are frightening.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple of chances after that because the floodgates opened until eventually Hummels knocked one in. What I noticed was Guerrero was taking corners, so when Akanji wasn't direct from the set piece, the ball got headed, bounced around a bit, and then he picked up on it. But Hummels was a straight header, so Guerrero looks like a good pick. Your man, Meunier, missed another one-on-one. He's not fantastic in front of goal.
Yeah, because that's the reason, like, because when you pick, like, a player, you're kind of looking for them to have the opportunities. So you're like, oh, yes, like, Meunier gets into them positions, but the fact that he's missed so many easy ones lately, it's kind of like, is the getting the positions is great as a defender, but if there's no end product, I could move that 5 million to another 5 million player, like get a Chelsea defender or even another Sevilla defender. Like, there's so many other choices, and yeah, it's getting frustrating, but I'm going to hopefully stick with him, give him one more chance.
Yeah, if there's a team to give him a chance, I think Zenit's a good a good shout. What I did notice is Berkey is back in goal. So anyone that was riding the hits train, it's come to a firm stop now, that train. And also it's good to see Torgan Hazard come off the bench. So he'd been injured, got injured a few games ago, so he's now back. So that's just another headache for people to have, really, with Dortmund's team. I think it's quite a simple thing. Have Haaland, and if you want another player, have Guerrero. I just think it's really that simple. They obviously looked a lot more solid playing a back four with Akanji and Hummels in there because they really missed Emre Can against Lazio, and they just look completely lost. I think the Dortmund manager has made a good decision in playing a 4-2-3-1 in just making them a bit harder to beat first and foremost, because that's all you kind of really need to do with this team. If you set up to make them difficult to beat and then allow Gio Reyna, Jadon Sancho's, Erling Braut Haaland, Marco Reus, Julian Brandt, Torgan Hazard to just do their thing, they'll get you plenty of goals. I don't think it needs to... I don't think you need to like swing so heavily into attack with those players. Just let them do the thing and make sure that you're difficult to beat at the other end. And it looked like they did that, and it worked a treat against Schalke.
No, definitely. I think with Dortmund, they're always going to be a team that is well drilled, that kind of know if one player's over there, like if Haaland makes a run that direction, the team just instinctively know where to go. And it's just built perfectly for players like Haaland, for Reina, Sancho, Royce. Like they don't even have to play every game, but they're so well drilled that when they do, they don't. It's not like a rusty team. Like it's just instinctive to know where everybody is, and the fact that Hazard is back is even crazier to this team. I think they'll turn Zenit over easily. I think this will be. I'm going 4-0.
4-0, big score. Well, just to quickly talk about Zenit, they didn't have a very good weekend. They were beaten 2-1 off Rubin Kazan. So Rubin Kazan aren't a bad team. Yurikin scored for Zenit. They played a strong team in general. Barrios was playing, Lovren, Rakitsky, Karavayev, Yurikin, Zuba was playing up front. Odzodiev was playing in the middle. They played a fairly strong team and were beaten 2-1. I wasn't convinced by them against Bruges. I think that was the best they've got to offer. And I'm going to go with 3-0, and I'd say avoid Zenit players. I don't think we need to talk about them that much. I just say avoid them.
Mm-hmm,
especially playing Latio in the next game. Why would you bring them in now? If you want to have a Zenit player, you would have had them for the Bruges game.
Yeah, definitely.
So Group F, I've got a feeling this conversation is going to be slanted one way more than the other. Let's get, not to be rude, but Ferencváros and Dynamo Kiev out the way. Both teams won this weekend. Ferencváros won 2-0. Who cares? And Dynamo Kiev won 1-0. Who cares? Other than their own fans. But when I say who cares, I mean people playing this game, because I can't see anyone going for any players from either of these teams. Obviously, if you're an absolute madman, you can go... I'd actually go for Ferencváros players over Dynamo players, personally. I thought that they did enough to scare Barcelona in the first 30 minutes of that game to have a look at. But ultimately, for one game, when there are so many other great options that we've already named and that we're going to name, and then they've got to play Juventus next week twice in a row. You're really brave if you go for it, but we won't be recommending anyone. And same with Dynamo. They provided absolutely nothing against Juventus. And Juventus are obviously a strong team, but they're not the superpower that they once were. You can attack Juventus. So I'm just staying clear of them. Are you, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely.
Barcelona versus Juventus. Juventus versus Barcelona. Is there
If anybody is
Um,
wanting a player, just go back and listen to our group previews for this group, and we'll say which players were worth getting. But
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's for this match. It's just not worth the transfer because the week after you're going to play Barcelona or Juventus like twice in a row. There's no point in getting the players in for 1 week.
Yeah. Speaking of Juventus versus Barcelona, why don't you talk to us about Juventus?
So at the time of recording, Juventus have just started their game against Verona. Something that when I listened to the last episode, I think it was said that Dybala wasn't fancied by Pirlo when that's not the situation. Dybala had a serious injury at the end of last year where he was in a rush to come back in time and he brought him on and then had to bring him back off. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that actually.
And so he's just now recovered. So Pirlo is easing him back in to the match, but he's starting alongside Morata, who Morata has been in great form, scoring 2. For those who had him in, brilliant, unbelievable.
Number 1 in the global rank, had him in.
Unbelievable. And Bonucci, he's the only defender I would probably reliably go with. Middle of the 3, he will be at the center of everything. Whenever anyone gets close to goal, he's going to be the one that kind of cleans it up. However, he is very prone to a yellow card, but he's a very, very intelligent defender. With the lineup, Aaron Ramsey keeps playing an attacking mid. So I think that's interesting, but he is very expensive. And to be honest, against Barcelona, I don't think any of these players scream out at me as a must start. I think they've got too many injuries, and without Ronaldo, I mean, it might benefit the team because Ronaldo won't be having so much pressure on himself to perform, and the team might play more balanced. But like what you said, this team is no longer the powerhouse of old, and I think if any player does do anything, I think Morata is probably that player. But I wouldn't, if you can afford another striker that we mentioned previously, go for them. I wouldn't put Morata over some of these other strikers, although PK isn't, I don't think he's in this, he's going to play.
He's got suspended.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was this game or if his suspension is finished, but so they'll play with a weakened defense, and Barcelona's defense can be got at as well. But unless Dybala gets subbed early in this game to be able to play 2 games in a row, I would wait on him as well. So, and just save your funds for when Ronaldo faces Ferencvaros twice.
Yeah, for sure. Bonucci 9 balls recovered for 3 points in the last game against a team that aren't overly attacking. So could be good against an attacking Barcelona team, but obviously Barcelona are a lot more likely to score. I think if you've got them, you keep them. And if you don't have them, I'd probably go elsewhere.
Yeah, just for that price point, you could get, because Chiellini was injured, they have a few 5 million defenders. Demiral, he got 7 points. And you've got Danilo, who will play left back. He seems like a good option. However, he's not playing in this game, and that Juventus have 3 centre backs at the back. And
I've got Danilo is playing at the minute as one of the back 3.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's playing as
Demiral,
Demiral, Bonucci,
he is.
and Bernardeschi is playing as the left wing back.
So yeah, scratch that. Danilo might play as a 5 million, but to be fair, Demiral versus Fati, Danilo versus Messi, Bonucci versus, well, whoever. I don't know if it'll be Griezmann, but whoever Barcelona play uh, as a striker, I don't think that the Juventus players will come out on top too much unless like they kind of crowd the players and it ends up just kind of ricocheting amongst all the players and one of them boots it away.
I can definitely see Juventus yellow cards fouling Messi and Fati. I can definitely see it.
And I think one of the Barcelona goals from last week, the ball from De Jong into Fati proves that they're able to kind of just cut you open with one pass. I thought that goal was brilliant.
It was good, but he was also allowed 6 weeks to play that pass.
Yeah.
Could have been on holiday and back before a defender put any pressure on him.
Yeah, they've got...
But what, like we said in the review show, he still had to execute the pass. So he's got the technical capabilities. You'd just like to think that maybe Juventus would be more aggressive, especially with a player like Frankie de Jong. I think it's not beyond them to rough him up a bit.
Especially when Artur is going to have something to prove. Pjanic is going to have something to prove. Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting.
I can definitely see some yellow cards. It's going to be a hard one to predict, though. We've got Barcelona, and as mentioned in the review show, I'd highly recommend Araujo. He is a £4 million defender who starts for Barcelona whilst Umtiti is out, and now that Piqué has been suspended. So if you're looking for a budget defender to stick alongside Koundé and then go for 3 really premium defenders, let's say you want one of the Liverpool fullbacks, you want Ramos, and you want Kimmich, that's like a really viable option now because this lad's going to play a couple of games. And yeah, fair enough, the first one's against Juve, but I wouldn't be too scared of Juve, especially if Ronaldo isn't back yet. And then he's got 2 games against Dynamo Kiev. I don't know how long these suspensions last for Champions League. Do you know, Aaron? Are there 3 games like league games, or is it just?
I think it's just 1.
1 for a straight red.
I think it's 2 for a straight red, and 1 for double yellow, or like an accumulation of yellows.
So,
sorry, not double yellow, but yeah, I think it's 2 for a red, and 1 for accumulation of yellows over the tournament.
Yeah, I'm just having a look. So a player who's given a straight red card is automatically suspended for a minimum of 1 game, but additional punishments can be added. With it being Gerard Piqué and Barcelona, I highly doubt that anything else will be added. So he is a bit of a 1-game punt. If you're on a limitless, well, probably not a limitless wild card, you just go for as many players as you want. But if you're on a wild card and you want a 1-game punt and know that you can shift him out, he's a perfectly viable option. It's a bit of a shame that obviously he's got the Juventus game more than the Dynamo gave, but beggars can't be choosers for £4 million defenders. It's something to look at. Barcelona have just released that Coutinho is injured as well now. Got injured in El Clasico. So that's like a real big miss. Coutinho proven last year at Bayern how important he can be to a team. I think he's had a fairly okay start to the season with Barcelona, much better than his first spell. And he's an experienced head around a very inexperienced team, really. As Barcelona are trying to transition through this phase by relying on young talent. Now, obviously, that talent is absolutely exceptional by the looks of Ansu Fati. Again, like I mentioned earlier, scored in the El Clasico. But they are about to play a really, really experienced Juventus team. So it comes down to the cliche of youth versus experience. Will they have the legs? Have they got the pace to, dink around, get in? Obviously, they've still got Messi who can do whatever he wants. Or are all their, physical attributes going to be undone by a stronger Juventus team and a smarter Juventus team? How many games has Bonucci played compared to Fati? So I think it's a really, really difficult game to predict. This is one of those where it's quite literally you can't laugh at anyone for picking any scoreline.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an idea of what you think it might be?
You can't laugh at anyone for any scoreline. I'm going to go with a 10-10 draw. I think.
I think that's realistic.
Yeah.
No, Aaron Ramsey with 7 of them.
If that happens, you heard it here first. And we'll absolutely hate ourselves for not having anyone from this team from that game.
Yeah, I'll hate myself for not putting a tenner on it.
I think Barcelona will win. I think it'll be a 2-1. I think Barcelona will go up 2-0. Juventus will score 1. And it'll kind of be tight at the end, but I think that Barcelona will hold on because Ronaldo's not there.
I'll go 1-1 again, but I wouldn't really go with me. It's just an educated guess. It's more so like on the likeliness of scorelines more than anything else. It's just such a hard game to predict, this one.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on, there's quite a lot of love for Dest. All of the Champions League fantasy articles on the actual Gaming Hub are saying that he's a must-have. I don't quite think he's a must-have, but there's quite a lot of love for him, saying that he's going to be Barcelona's secret weapon in the group stages and stuff like that.
He's a good player, but
yeah, but I just wanted to kind of clear that up, thinking that I think there's better 5 million options, as Angelino proved last week. And I think all of my 5 million players scored more than Dest last week. So
also, if you're going for a Barcelona defender, genuinely go for Jordi Alba. He's back. And I think, I haven't got it in front of me, but I think he was the one that got the assist for Fati at the weekend. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, he did get an assist on the weekend.
And that's like 5 assists in 6 games or something daft.
Yeah, and Roberto as well. Sergio Roberto. Sorry, I like Sergio Roberto because he either plays at right back, meaning that he kicks Dest out the team, or he plays as kind of like a Kimmich type thing where he plays like in the midfield, helps Busquets out. So he's kind of like he's always in the starting 11. It's just his position changes all the time, but he's 0.5 cheaper. But Alba is proven year in, year out to get attack and returns. So the 6 million is kind of a safe 6.
Yeah. I think as well, I think there's more options than Barcelona team that you might want to go for. I know that we've sort of questioned the choice of Frankie de Jong, but he gets assists, he gets ball recoveries. I do get it. And obviously Ansu Fati, he's on a hot streak. I currently have him in my team, and I don't know whether to keep him or not for this game. My gut feeling is I won't be keeping him, but it's not because I don't want to keep him. It's because I just think I may need the money. I think I don't think I can afford to have an 8 million in there to go for one of the other players that I might be looking at. I'm not entirely sure. It's something that I've got to going to have to think about, and it's not going to be a decision I make until Tuesday. And I'll stick my team on Twitter as well for everyone to see. But that's going to be a hard decision, the Fati one. If I can afford to move, like I say, I've got a bit of money in the bank. If I can afford to move Barrios up to someone great, then fantastic. I'll have it like that. But yeah, not sure.
And pause.
So we're on to the final group. We've got, first of all, Istanbul versus Paris Saint-Germain. Istanbul finding some form miraculously after not winning any of their first 10 games, have now won two on the spin in the Turkish Superliga. This week they beat Antalyaspor 5-1. So it's fairly convincing, and I feel because it was so convincing, I could at least do them a little bit of justice by reading out the scorers. So Visca scored a pen and got a second later on. Kavecci scored, Crivelli scored, and Giuliano scored. What's interesting is that they were 4-0 up. Sorry, they were 4-1 up. And then Hamilton got sent off for Antalyaspor before the half ended. And then once they went down to 10 men, Istanbul only managed one. But it looks like they made maximum use of their substitutions. I'm still not going to recommend anyone at all. Fair enough, they've now won 2 out of 12 games. But with how convincing Leipzig were against them, I don't see why I would suggest, PSG would be any different. Got anything to say on Istanbul?
Not really. It's hard because, you just don't know how. Like, it's not that they're not a good team. I'm not saying they're not, for those who may be offended at that. But against this group, I just can't see them beating any of them. So if they were in another group, I would be like, oh, maybe get this player. But yeah, I just don't see them getting anything from this next game.
Yeah, PSG winning 4-0 at the weekend against Dijon, the home of mustard. And it was comprehensive, to say the least. Mbappe didn't start, came off the bench and got 2 goals. Moise Kean got 2 goals. His first one was an excellent finish. Neymar, up and down, he absolutely ran the show. He laid Kean off for one of the easiest goals he's ever likely to score. He was everywhere, but he also, when the time came to it, missed quite easy chances. I think he hit the post with a header and then hit the rebound over the bar as he was leaning back. He had another good chance 1-on-1 that he missed. PSG with a completely changed team. Rico in goal. Their back four was Dagba, Danilo Pereira, who's on loan from FC Porto, usually plays as holding midfield. Diallo, Baka was at left back, which suggests that Kurzawa will probably come in at left back against Istanbul. Marquinhos was in holding midfield again, which was nice to see. Draxler, Rafinha played, and then a front three of Sarabia, Kean, and Neymar. Neymar played the full game. So I don't know whether Tuchel is looking at playing Neymar for league games and Mbappe in the Champions League and then maybe swapping it around a bit. I'm not entirely sure.
I think Neymar will play every game until he's injured.
But he does get injuries, so maybe that's not the smartest thing to do. But
yeah, but we didn't say that Tuchel was a smart coach.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, I think last year we said that he wasn't the best coach.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Mbappe coming off the bench and bagging 2. And now he's up against Istanbul. I don't think my plan of going to him from Messi has changed in the slightest, especially after Messi's sort of on-off performance against Real Madrid. And his fixture being considerably more difficult than Mbappe's. And Mbappe is a captaincy option. He really is.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to go through this headache. I had him in week 1. And I had him in mind for this game, that I wouldn't have to make the transfer and that I could look at other teams that had easy fixtures this round. So yeah. That's quite nice.
What's your prediction for this game?
I'm going to go, let's say that Paris Saint-Germain really feel like they need to get back into this, going to rally up the goal difference. So I'm going to go with a very, very convincing, high-scoring 1-0. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go 5-6-0. Paris
Which one?
Saint-Germain. 5-6-0. It's quite
5-6-0.
It's quite obvious which one I'm going for, Dan.
56-0.
Do you not know what 5-6-0 means?
I'm not entirely sure. But we'll go with it. We'll see how you can put that in on the predictor. I'm going with 3-0.
Okay, so because you said that, I'm going to go 6-0.
Quality. Double it. Double or nothing.
Yeah.
The last game that we get to talk about. Dum dum dum. Manchester United versus RB Leipzig. Really good news for RB Leipzig. The man who my team is named after, Sabitzer, is back. He got some minutes at the weekend, which is lovely to see after his muscle injury, which makes me positive that Leipzig will be a much better team. They did win at the weekend, 2-1 against Hertha Berlin. Upamecano scored and Sabitzer scored a penalty. So that's interesting. That being said, I'm not entirely sure if Forsberg was on the pitch when it was taken, because Forsberg was taken off. Leipzig went back to 4 at the back, so they do like to change this around a bit. A fairly strong team, but clearly an eye for this game. Soloth got his start. Cameron will be absolutely over the moon with that. That his scouting has came to fruition. Not that he did much. He did get an assist for Upamecano, but other than that, he was quite peripheral. Leipzig were actually 1-0 down in this game, so some good character to come back. I've got Forsberg in my team at the minute. I want Sabitzer. That is a luxury transfer. So I don't know what to do because I want Kingsley Coman, I want Tete, I want Sabitzer, and I want Mbappe. So I need to pick 2 of the 4 that I'm going to roll with this week. And at the minute, my feelings are Kingsley Coman and Kylian Mbappe. But I mean, I'm going to kick myself if Sabitzer does anything against Man United, and I think he really, really can. He's just class. He's just absolute class.
I think you should just go back down to earth, Dan. You know, you've got so many points. Just sacrifice some in a points hit and
just pie off 8 of them. I still have 100.
Yeah, just go for it. Come back down to our level.
If it was Fantasy Premier League, I probably would. Not that I'm likely to see that many points. My team's I think everyone's team's having a shocker this week. I am someone that's lucky enough to have Saiss, who got subbed off before Newcastle banged in an equaliser, and I celebrated that. And I've got Jimenez still. Tip, by the way, I don't know if anyone's realised this about Raul Jimenez. He tends to score for 2 games and blank for 2 games. And this was his second game that he scored. Just as I don't know if any people that like looking at stats want to look at that. That's just from what I've seen from an eye test, that he tends to score in 2 and miss 2. So I don't know why, just throwing in some FPL content there from someone who doesn't tend to do very well on FPL. But yeah, I don't know what to do yet. It's going to be a Tuesday decision for me, all that. Man United, did he catch the Chelsea game?
No, thank goodness.
Wasn't great. Rashford, again, a spark. They played all right, Man United. I think they played probably a little better than Chelsea. But again, lucky that they didn't give away a penalty. Ollie likes big fixtures. I don't know if Leipzig's name is enough to get Man United players as geared up as they would against PSG. And if their players are high profile enough, you know, I think when you see Mbappe there, it's going to raise your game. It's not to say that I think Man United will disrespect Leipzig. I'm sure they're very much aware that this is a really strong team. But will they just have that little look in their eye at some of those players and go, yeah, I need to be at my best today? I'm not entirely sure.
I'm quite interested to see kind of how Upamecano does at Old Trafford, because he's been linked with Manchester United for a few summers now, and I think if he does well against them, it seems to be the case. Like that's how Bruno Fernandes was, where everybody had heard of him, all the stats were coming out, and then it wasn't until they had seen him play in Europe that they were kind of pressuring Ed Woodward to get him. I mean, they got him like 2 transfer windows later. Imagine if they had got him sooner. Like, yeah. Anyways, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Upamecano does then, to kind of show his class that he can do it against these strikers. But him against Rashford, I think, will be very interesting. I can't wait for that battle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that a lot. I think the biggest concern with Man United is we don't know who's going to play.
Other than Bruno Fernandes, because he always plays. Even if he had one leg, Bruno Fernandes would play.
And we know Donny van de Beek is not going to play.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a bit of an odd one. But what I saw as well is Tuanzebe was dropped against Chelsea. Very, very, very harsh. He might come in for this game. I don't know if Solskjaer maybe thinks, oh, well, I'll rest you for Chelsea and then I'll play you against Leipzig. Is that a risk you want to take? I'm not sure. I think if he starts this game, he is someone that people should be looking at for double Istanbul fixtures for sure at his price. Definitely should be looking at a player like that. For this particular game, if I didn't have any Man United assets, I wouldn't be going for them. I'd be saving my Man United asset purchases for next week when, like I say, they've got a double Istanbul.
Yeah.
So we'll see how Istanbul do against PSG first. May as well have all the data before making decisions like that, but it's one to keep an eye on. But I don't understand why you would ever bring in a Man United player for this fixture when Leipzig are one of the most difficult teams in the competition to predict.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with their star man back now. Like, if Sabitzer wasn't playing, yeah, you know what? They've looked a little slow at times, Leipzig. Obviously, you know, when they win 2-0 and it's the left back that gets both goals. Big up Angelino. I think Angelino can have an absolute worldie against Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. He is not kicked on the season. He's making basic errors. He played really well against PSG. But like I say, I think there is something about playing against a certain level of player that really focuses a footballer. And against other teams, I've seen Aaron Wan-Bissaka switch off so easily. And that's not to say he's a bad defender, by the way. I think, obviously, from what we saw of him last season, he's really got it and he's like a push on. He's obviously had a bit of a tumultuous week with lots of social media things coming out about him. So hopefully, you know, football can be a good distraction for the lad. You know, even if whatever's happened on social media has painted him out to be not a particularly nice person. Obviously, it's just one side of the story. But I think Angelino trying to get in behind there, those two will be at each other all day, and I'm really excited to see it. I just think Leipzig are far better off covering for Angelino's wild runs versus Manchester United with Lindelof and Maguire. I think they need Tuanzebe because he's got the pace. Lindelof and Maguire are an accident waiting to happen against a team like this.
Mm-hmm.
What's your prediction for the game?
I think Leipzig will win. I think that it'll be we'll say 2-0.
I'm going to go 2-1 with Leipzig. I'd like it if it was 2-0, just because I've got Angelino at the back. And currently I've got Forsberg in my team. Like I say, I think usually for these, when we did the round of 16 last year, we sort of went through what our teams are at the end, but we've got another couple of days and we now have Twitter. So please follow us on Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod. Alternatively, we are on YouTube, and I share both the YouTube link and the Spotify link on our Twitter account. So please just go on there, have a check. We appreciate everyone's support. Everyone's been amazing. We've passed 250 followers in literally since the group previews were out, which was a week ago or something, a week and a half ago. And there's been a really, really warm welcome from other people within the UCL fantasy community. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. It's honestly been amazing. I wasn't expecting it. I'm now a part of like a random mini league with loads of players as well who listen and we talk on there, and they've all been great. So just a shout out to all the players in that league. Best of luck for this week, but not too much luck. So I just want to say thank you for that, really. But if you follow us on Twitter, UCL Fantasy Pod, we will post our teams on there like we did for the group previews, and we will also post how we did after each match day so that you can get a feel on there. Other than that, Aaron, just want to say a big thank you as ever for coming on. As always, my partner in crime, I've missed you.
Thank you so much. I'm getting emotional.
And to everyone else for listening, thank you so much. Hope you have an absolutely banging game week. Lots of points galore and many a green arrow for everyone. Bye now.